there you see Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, is going to be for the first time stepping over into South Korea. It is morning on the Korean Peninsula, a historic one at that. The leaders of North and South are about to meet to negotiate a peace settlement and denuclearization. President Moon shaking hands with Kim Jong-un. Extraordinary moment to see these two leaders there, Kim Jong-un stepping over into South Korea. That has never happened before, posing there for more photographs on the South Korean side of the DMZ, an area traditionally full of tension. The setting for the summit, the Peace House, which is on the southern side of the demilitarized zone. Seen as Will Ripley and Christian Amanpour join us now. Christian, I want to start off with Will Ripley, who's actually near the DMZ. Will, as we continue to look at these pictures, it's really extraordinary to see these two men continuing to hold hands and now having a discussion.
This is the first time in the history of North Korea that a leader has stepped foot on the south side of the DMZ, and it shows really a new willingness on the part of Kim Jong-un to try to engage with South Korea and really ultimately engage with the United States. This has been a carefully orchestrated thaw that began with North Korea's last missile launch, their intercontinental ballistic missile launch in November. Kim Jong-un and President Moon Jae-in using the Olympics to really kick off this new era of diplomacy, which is such an abrupt U-turn from the military escalation that we've been reporting about for much of the last couple of years. I've been in North Korea many times when they've launched missiles. I've been there just after nuclear tests, and to sit here now and to see Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in walking together in Panmunjom towards the Peace House, it is really almost words can't describe what this moment means. I'm here on a rooftop about 5 miles from the demilitarized zone, and all around me there are Koreans, citizens and journalists who are completely silent at this moment. They're watching the live stream on their phones. Earlier, they watched President Moon's convoy as he drove across the Unification Bridge towards Panmunjom, and there were cheers. People were waving. There is really an electricity and an optimism in the air here on the peninsula, but it certainly is a cautious optimism because we've been down this road before where there have been summits between the leaders of the North and South. Agreements have been made for denuclearization, for peace, and then it all went horribly wrong. Will this time be different? That's certainly the hope here, but people are skeptical and, of course, worried about what could happen if this summit doesn't work out and if the upcoming talks with President Trump don't work out, because there are some huge differences between what the North Koreans want and what the South Koreans want and what the United States wants, certainly when it comes to the issue of denuclearization.
Yeah, Christian, I mean, even if nothing substantial comes out of this meeting, is the fact that this summit is happening significance enough?
Anderson, it is. Look, let's just not forget that this comes after many, many months of the most heightened rhetoric that we've really ever seen between North Korea and the West. The whole business of the nuclear test, the intercontinental ballistic missile test, the fire and the fury from President Trump at the podium of the United Nations, the "I have a button on my desk" from Kim Jong-un in his New Year's speech to the world, the "I have a bigger button" from President Trump, the fact that this region and the world trembled for weeks and months, potentially on the brink of even what the United States was calling a bloody nose message to North Korea. This has changed that rhetoric, at least for the moment. And as you see this honor guard, as you see the red carpet, as you see, frankly, Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in acting like dads with their arms around two children and flowers being given and handshakes and smiles, this is, for this moment, an extraordinary change. And that's why it's important, because it shows that there is a possibility of changing the dynamic from headlong into conflict to potential negotiation. And of course, this meeting will be the precursor to a maybe meeting between President Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. Although yesterday I spoke to the foreign minister and she told me there will be that meeting. And of course, after this summit between the two Korean leaders ends and wraps up this evening, they hope for a written commitment from Kim Jong-un to denuclearization. They say, the foreign minister told me, that her president will be immediately on the phone to the U.S. president to discuss the tone of the meeting, to see whether enough has been achieved to recommend that the United States goes ahead with its planned summit. But the foreign minister told me that she was quite convinced that would happen. Of course, just to be completely realistic, denuclearization at this point may mean two different things to two different sides. Yeah. President Trump and the South Koreans have said it must be verifiable destruction and dismantling for even the beginnings of a removal of sanctions and an onward motion. We don't sure exactly what Kim Jong-un means by it. In the past, it means including the United States and the removal of forces and a much bigger interpretation. But we'll see. We'll see what happens by the end of this one-day summit.
And Will, just very briefly, do we know how long the meeting between these two men is supposed to last?
They're going to have a couple of different sessions lasting several hours apiece. They'll have a morning discussion, then they'll break for lunch. Kim Jong-un will actually cross back into the north. When he comes back in the afternoon, there will be a ceremonial tree planting where they're going to bring soil from both North and South Korea to plant this tree. They're going to bring water from the Taedong River and the Hans River, Taedong in the north, Hans in the south. They're going to water the tree. I mean, all of these photo ops are very symbolic, and they'll be shown live around the world. But those discussions inside Peace House won't be televised, and those are going to be the hard discussions about whether these two sides can actually come together.
Will Ripley, Christiane Amanpour will continue to monitor events.